Dear student, in this lecture we will discuss the development of the brain and medulla oblongata, which is a part of the hind brain. The brain develops from the neural tube, and neural tube itself forms during the third week of the development from the neural plate, whose edges then get raised up to form the neural folds, and those neural folds then converge towards each other and finally meet, result in the closure of the neural groove. This results in the formation of a closed tubular structure which is called the neural tube with the lumen inside. Brain develops from the upper expanded portion of that neural tube, which lies cranial to the fourth pair of the somites. During the fourth week of the development, that upper expanded portion of the neural tube get divided into three dilatations by the formation of the sulcis, and those three dilatations are called primary brain vesicles. The cranial most is called the prosencephalon vesicle or the forebrain vesicle. Middle dilatation is called the mesencephalon vesicle or the midbrain vesicle, and the caudal most is called the rhombencephalon vesicle. Sometimes we can divide the brain into two portions, the higher center and the brain stem. The higher center consists of cerebrum and the cerebellum, while brain stem consists of midbrain, pons and the medulla oblongata. The cerebrum part of the higher center develops from the prosencephalon, while the cerebellar part of the higher center develops from the cranial part of the rhombencephalon, which is called the mesencephalon. The cranial portion of the brain stem, which is called the midbrain, it develops from the middle vesicle, which is called the mesencephalon vesicle, while the pons develops from the cranial portion of the rhombencephalon vesicle, which is called the mesencephalon. And mesencephalon, I have already told you, also give rise to the cerebellum, while the caudal portion of the rhombencephalon is called the myelencephalon, and that will give rise to the medulla oblongata. A deep furrow later on forms between the midbrain vesicle and the rhombencephalon vesicle, which is called the rhombencephalic isthmus. At the end of the fourth week and the start of the fifth week, there is a rapid growth of the neural tube, and that neural tube, with the folding of the embryo, also gets state which is convex dorsally, and during that curve formation, two flexures are formed, one in the region of the developing midbrain region, which is called the cephalic flexure or the mesencephalic flexure. Another is formed at the junction of the rhombencephalon and the lower cylindrical part of the neural tube, which later on gives rise to the spinal cord, and that flexure is called the cervical flexure. During the fifth week of the development, the primary vesicles get divided further to form the secondary vesicles. The cranial most primary vesicle, prosencephalon, gets divided into telencephalon and the diencephalon. Telencephalon later on will form the forebrain, that is the cerebral hemispheres, while the diencephalon will later on form the thalamus, hypothalamus, epithalamus, pituitary gland and the optic vesicles. The midbrain vesicle will itself form the secondary vesicle and it will not get divided further into two. While the caudalmost vesicle, which is called the rhombencephalon vesicle, that primary vesicle will further divide into the cranial metencephalon vesicle and the caudal myelencephalon vesicle. These two secondary vesicles will form the pons, medulla oblongata and the cerebellum. Metencephalon will form the pons and the cerebellum, while the myelencephalon will form the medulla oblongata. During the 5th week, another development takes place due to the unequal growth between the cephalic flexure and the cervical flexure. Another flexure with the name of the pontine flexure forms. Contrary to the cephalic and the cervical flexure, this pontine flexure is convex ventrally. Later on, the cervical and the pontine flexures, they disappears, but the cephalic flexure persists. This one, cephalic flexure persists, and that persistence of the cephalic flexure is responsible for the setting of the cerebellar hemispheres and the diencephalon at right angles to the brain stem. The ventricles of the brain develops from the neural canal of the different vesicles of the developing brain. First of all, there is a expansion of the neural canal in the different vesicles of the developing brain that lead to the formation of the primitive ventricles. During the later development, these primitive ventricles give rise to the definite ventricles of the adult brain. The cavity of the myelencephalon secondary vesicle will give rise to the central canal as well as a part of the fourth ventricle. In the closed part, it will give rise to the central canal, while in the upper, which is also called the open part of the medulla oblongata, it will give rise to the lower half of the diamond shaped fourth ventricles, while the upper part of the fourth ventricle develops from the metencephalon secondary brain vesicle. The cavity of the diencephalon vesicle will form a slit-like gap-like ventricle with the name of the third ventricle between the two cerebral hemispheres, and that third ventricle is connected to the fourth ventricle by way of a narrow canal which is called the aqueduct of Sylvius, which is formed by the neural canal of the mesencephalon vesicle. The neural canal in the two diverticula which arises from the forebrain vesicle, that is the telencephalon, will form the lateral ventricles bilaterally. Right lateral ventricle in the right cerebral hemisphere and the other one in the left cerebral hemispheres. These two lateral ventricles, which consist of the anterior horn, body and the posterior horn, as well as also they also consist of inferior horns. These two lateral ventricles are connected to the third ventricle by way of a foramina of Monro. So a continuous channel is established from the lateral ventricle to the third ventricle by way of the foramen of Monro. Third ventricle is connected to the fourth ventricle by way of this aqueduct of the Sylvius, and the fourth ventricle is connected to the central canal of the spinal canal. While three foramina also develops in the fourth ventricle, one in the roof and two in its lateral aspects, and by way of those three foramina, the fourth ventricle is communicated to the subarachnoid space. The ventricles are filled later on by the secretions of the choroid plexus, which is called the cerebrospinal fluid. Core cells are derived from the neuroepithelial cells which lines the ventricles of the brain. They are the specialized neuroepithelial cells. The hindbrain consists of pons, medulla oblongata, and the cerebellum. Hindbrain develops from the caudal-most primary brain vesicle, which is called the rhombencephalon. Cervical flexure demarcates the rhombencephalon from the developing spinal cord, while the pontine flexure, this one, it divides the rhombencephalon vesicle into a caudal portion which is called the myelencephalon, which later on give rise to the medulla oblongata, and a rostral portion which is called the metencephalon. Metencephalon later on give rise to the pons and cerebellum. This one in this picture, this one is the pontine flexure, and from here up to the rhombencephalon isthmus. This is the rhombencephalon isthmus. From here up to the pontine flexure is the metencephalon part of the rhombencephalon vesicle, and from the pontine flexure up to the cervical flexure is the myelencephalon part of the rhombencephalon. Now we will discuss the development of the myelencephalon, which give rise to myelencephalon can be divided into a caudal part, which forms a closed part of the medulla oblongata. This one from spinal cord up to this point, this is the closed part of the medulla oblongata. It has a developmentally and structural resemblance to the spinal cord, and like that it has a narrow cavity which is called the central canal. From here up to the junction of the pons, the other part is called the open part, as in this part the lateral walls of the developing neural tube diverge from each other, causing stretching of the roof, so converting the narrow canal into a rhomboidal shaped space, forming the lower half of the fourth ventricle. This one is the fourth ventricle, this one, and this lower half is formed by the cavity of the rostral part of the myelencephalon, while the upper half of the fourth ventricle is formed by the cavity of the mesencephalon, which forms the pons and the cerebellum. In this diagram, from the exit of the first cervical nerve up to the two tubercles with the name of the gracilis and the cuneatus. So from that emergence of the first cervical nerve to these tubercles, this is the closed part of the medulla oblongata, while from that tubercles up to the junction of the start of the pons, which is on the posterior aspect, usually the level of the facial caulicle, that part is the open part of the medulla oblongata. The caudal part of the myelencephalon has a structural and developmental resemblance to the spinal cord. Its neural canal, like the spinal cord, forms the narrow central canal, but the neuroblasts behave differently. Neuroblasts from the alar plate of the caudal part of the myelencephalon, they move to the marginal zone and form two masses of the gray matter there. These two masses are called the nucleus gracilis medially and the nucleus cuneatus laterally. This one is the nucleus cuneatus and this one is the nucleus gracilis. Similarly, on the right side, these two masses are formed. They receive the fibers from the spinal cord with the name of the fasciculus gracilis and the fasciculus cuneatus respectively. From these two nuclei, fiber arises. They travel in a ventral and medial direction, crossing to the opposite side. So they form a crossing fibers with the name of the internal arcuate fibers, which decussate with one another, forming the great sensory decussation. While in the ventral area, two swellings are formed on the surface with the name of the pyramids. These pyramids contains the corticospinal fibers from the developing brain. In between the fibers, there are motor nuclei placed, which are derived from the basal plate of the neural tube. The rostral part of the myelencephalon forms the open part of the medulla oblongata. This part is wide, especially opposite the pontine flexure. It is actually the pontine flexure which causes the lateral wall of this part of the myelencephalon to open like the pages of a book, and that divergence of the lateral wall or the opening like the pages of the book causes the stretching of the roof plate, and that stretching also causes thinning of the roof plate. Another change is that the cavity changes its shape. From a almost circular shape, it becomes diamond shape. Ellar plate, due to that movement of the lateral wall, also move and they come to lie parallel to the basal plate. Ellar plate coming here and lying parallel to the basal plates, but these Ellar plates are placed lateral to the basal. Neuroblast from the Ellar and the basal plates in the rostral part of the medulla oblongata organize themselves into 6 columns, and the neuroblast of these 6 columns give rise to the nuclei of the different cranial nerves. The neuroblast of the basal plates form 3 columns close to the midline, and they give rise to the motor nuclei, while the neuroblasts of the Ellar plate, they place themselves lateral to the columns formed by the basal plates, and these are the 3 columns formed by the Ellar plates, and these give rise to the association nuclei of the sensory pathways. Both group of the columns are separated by the sulcus limitans, as that sulcus limitans also divides the Ellar and the basal plates. From medial to lateral, these columns are the general somatic efferent, special visceral efferent, general visceral efferent, general visceral afferent. Next is the special afferent column, which is further divided into special visceral afferent and special somatic afferent, and later most is the general somatic afferent column. That is the general somatic afferent column. The general neuroblast of the general somatic efferent column form the nucleus of the hypoglossal nerve, and that hypoglossal nucleus give rise to the motor fibers which supplies the musculature of the tongue through the hypoglossal nerve. The second lateral column comprises of special visceral efferent fibers, and the neuroblast of this column forms the nucleus ambiguus, which is displayed somewhat ventrally, and it gives rise to the fibers which supplies the third musculature derived from the third and the fourth pharyngeal arches through 9th, 10th and 11th nerve. Lateral to this column is the general visceral efferent column, and the neuroblast of this column give rise to the dorsal motor vagal nucleus, and the fiber arising from this forms the preganglionic parasympathetic fibers which supplies to the heart, lung, GIT through the 10th cranial nerves. The same column in the upper part forms the inferior salivatory nucleus which supplies the preganglionic parasympathetic fibers to the parotid gland through the 9th nerve in the upper part of the medulla oblongata. Then comes the columns formed by the Ellar plate. First of all, lateral to this is the general visceral afferent column, and the neuroblast of this column forms the nucleus tractus solitarius, which receives the sensation general sensation from the viscera of heart, lungs and GIT through the 10th cranial nerve. The nucleus tractus solitarius in the upper part also receives the taste fibers through the 7th nerve, forming the special visceral afferent column. Lateral to that is the special somatic afferent column. It forms of the nuclei of the vestibulocochlear nuclei, and it receives the impulses from the ear through the vestibulocochlear nerve. The lateralmost column comprises of the general somatic afferent, and the neuroblast of this column form the association nuclei which give rise to the spinal nucleus of the 5th cranial nerve, that is the trigeminal nerve, and these fibers carries the general sensation from the head and the neck. Dear students, the neurons in the basal and the alar plates and the fibers arising from them, the demarcation between these is not so much clear. Rather, the fibers are crossing in every direction and breaking up the grey matter into a mixture of grey matter and the white matter, which usually placed here in the center of the medulla oblongata, and that mixture of the grey matter and the white matter give rise to a structure which is called the reticular formation. Some of the neuroblasts move from the alar plate in a ventral direction and come to lie on the ventral aspect of the medulla oblongata, and here it forms the olivary nucleus. Initially, the roof of the 4th ventricle is composed of the single layer of the epithelial cells, but later on it gets covering of the vascular pia matter, and collectively these two layers are called the telochroidia. When the sac-like invaginations of this vascularized telochroidia project into the cavity of the 4th ventricle, this forms the choroid plexus of the 4th ventricle. The cells of the choroid plexus secrete the CSF which fills the cavity of the 4th ventricle. This is initially the roof of the 4th ventricle formed by the single layer of the ependymal cells. Later on, it gets covered by the vascularized pia matter, and when the sac-like invaginations of this telochroidia takes place into the cavity, it forms a structure which is called the choroid plexus, and the cells lining this choroid plexus secrete the CSF which fill this cavity of the 4th ventricle. Local resorption of the roof plate results in the formation of foramina of the Luschka. These foramina are 2 in number, one in each lateral recesses of the 4th ventricle, and a median foramina of Magendie is also formed in the inferior part of the roof of the 4th ventricle. This is the foramina of Magendie in the inferior part of the roof of the fourth ventricle. This is the superior part of the roof of the fourth ventricle. By way of these two foramina, the foramina of Luschka and foramina of Magendie, the CS of the fourth ventricle gets leaked into the subarachnoid space. Any blockage of these, any atresia or blockage of these three foramina leads to the increased CSF pressure, which is called hydrocephalus. With this point, we end the formation of the brain and the spinal cord part of the medulla oblongata part of the. Thank you so much. In the next lecture, we will discuss the metencephalon, the development of the metencephalon, which will lead to the formation of the pons and the cerebellum. Inshallah.